I looked through this, you know how many times I looked through this. Make sure I had it right. I have a signed letter that I can show y'all from the former United States Attorney that accuses Tom Horner and the state police of violating federal criminal law, violating those codes. I'd show it to y'all in a minute, but I thought I had it on the slideshow, but I've got it. So we have a person with that much experience reviewed the state's file and said that these officials violated federal criminal law in the way they treated me. That's pretty serious. Now these are folks, you know, it could be Cody. He could get charged with something. If he did, don't you think he ought to be treated fair in court? It could be you. It could be anybody. It could be my children. It could be anybody.
If he goes to court and he's found guilty, he's guilty.
Correct. I understand that.
He pays the fine, serves what he has to.
I understand that. But he should be treated fair with his trial.
Well, that's our court system. He found
That's
guilty.
what he's telling you right now.
I'm just trying to say we all should be treated fair. Fair and equal.
That's right. I agree with you.
And
But
so,
if I go out tonight and do something,
right.
they pick me up and I'm charged. I
Right.
go between, go to court. They
Right,
find
and you
me
should have a
guilty,
fair trial.
I'm guilty.
You should have a fair trial.
Well, that's what
But
they
if you were
find
picked
for.
up and you didn't do something, what he's trying to say is you're innocent
I
until you're
understand what
proven
he's
guilty.
saying.
So
You
here's
just get
what.
fairness.
So here's what I've done. Here's what I've done. What I've done is these things, which the Journal Patriot fails to cover. I filed a lawsuit in Wake County against Miss Goldman. It's pending. The attorney filed that for me. I filed a lawsuit in federal court. That's the caption of it right there. That's pending in federal court. 10 claims for violation of constitutional rights. That's in court, and I want them to get fair due process. There it is. Kevin Reese versus Tom Horner, Matthew Leach, Lee Bollinger, three SBI officials in the DA's office. That's currently pending in court. Now, the newspaper that was here a while ago that left out, I didn't read it, but when they covered something in Rhonda recently, I got a phone call and said, instead of covering something in Rhonda, they more so went into everything about me again than what was going on in Rhonda. Okay? That's what I was told. At the time this was already filed, they knew this. They're not telling the whole story. They're not. All right? Now, I also want to ask you this. We look at things going on within our country. I think some of these things, Mr. Victor will agree with me on before I get finished here. See, y'all know who this guy is. You ever watch this guy on Netflix? Tiger King, Joe Exotic. Y'all know who that is?
Yeah.
He's currently in federal prison. 2 counts of soliciting to murder somebody and something else. He is an official candidate for President of the United States. He is, and he's incarcerated. You tell me why he could get elected if he, I don't think he will, but if he did get elected, he could serve as our president. But I can't serve on that board because they say I made a false statement and I don't know. Referring to those blurry photos that we looked at earlier. So tell me how that's right in this country. Don't the people in Rhonda that cast those ballots here have a right to choose who sits up there?
Yes.
We're supposed to.
Should it be a bunch of people sitting down there in Raleigh or Washington? Do you think people in Raleigh and Washington know what people in Rhonda and people in Wilkes County need?
They don't,
Do you think they even care what we need?
they don't care.
Do y'all think they do?
They're not focused on the drugs and the beatings.
But the people in Rhonda knew they wanted to vote in. They voted in a person. They used process to get rid of that person. And you can think whatever you want to about me, but I kind of know what I did as a commissioner. I think that we know what resolutions we passed. We know the things that I agendaed. We worked together. We had a really good board. I didn't agree with everybody on that board, but you know what? We never had no knockout, drag-out fights, and we resolved things. We had an issue that had been an issue a long time in this town about one house that had been a sore spot in this town forever, and we never could get it resolved. But I worked with Commissioner Simmons. We worked together, and we got that took care of. You know we did. And you've been trying for years, but we worked together. I did, that board up there is good because they don't agree on everything. If they all agreed on everything, something would be wrong. So we have a good board here in this town. We do. So with that being said, I've spent nearly $100,000 of my own money on attorneys. Not just fighting for my rights, but fighting for the rights of everybody in this town. So one of the law firms that represents me has said that by them taking these actions, and they knew by violating my constitutional rights, they knew it would remove me from that elected seat. And by doing that, they violated the rights of every voter in this town. So I have a law firm that's willing to probably take up the torch for every citizen in Rhonda that voted and sue the state on behalf of all the people that live here.
Praise Jesus.
Because I want y'all to go back and think about those kids that died, giving us the right to have true and fair and honest elections
Yeah, and my husband would follow.
without government interference. I mean, I just want y'all to think about that. The 14th Amendment, you know, when I mentioned that earlier, no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. They took my property, they gave it to somebody else, they never let me put forth evidence before a judge. They
That's
never
why they
gave
gave
me
you the
due
insurance.
process. I never gave them permission to do that. And when I threatened to go before a judge to be heard, they punished me. If I had not have threatened to done that, I'd still be sitting up there with those commissioners right now. But I would have violated the oath that I took to protect that Constitution. So that's what happened here. I also want to tell y'all about something else about constitutional rights. Well, I also want to tell y'all something about Miss Goldman before I ever met Miss Goldman. I shared this with the board up there. I think it's 2011. Miss Goldman in Raleigh in 2011 reported a jewelry theft in Raleigh. She accused a North Carolina House of member that she was having an affair with. According to the news, she was having an affair with Mr. Malone. He was the North Carolina House Representative. She reported a jewelry theft in Raleigh and accused him of being the person that took it.
Just like I mean the people.
Jewelry was never recovered, and for some reason her theft report went missing from the DA's office in Wake County. Now Miss Goldman at the time was on our ballot for state auditor. She got nearly maybe 1.5 million votes in our state or something like that. She didn't win, but she was also the vice chairman of the Wake County Board at the time. So y'all just choose, but if politics play a role in that. But all I can tell you is this. Lightning don't strike twice. You don't have a jewelry theft unless 8 years apart of that magnitude. And both of the times you say your romantic partner was the one that took it. Does that make any sense? I didn't know her when she was down there.
Kevin, at the time that she left her keys on the table, and she said the man took them and went in her house.
But the DA's office knew about that.
Kevin,
So this is what's happened to y'all's commissioner. This is my side of what's happened. Hold on a second, Andrew. And I think it violated everybody's rights. And I want to tell you something. If they will go after Donald Trump for saying that he interfered in an election result, I don't know what the evidence against him is. But I don't think it's more clear than the evidence that I've got that they violated my rights. They said I would not be charged. I stood up for my rights and I was charged. I also want to tell you this. How many of y'all have heard of the public defender? People probably have. Getting a court-appointed lawyer. Well, how many people do you think live in Wilkes County that work their whole life? They're proud of their jobs, but if they needed a lawyer, they can't afford to hire one right now. You think we've got a lot of people like that that live in this county?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Most
So
of
we have 65,000 people that live in Wilkes County. We have less than 100 attorneys in the county. Okay? Earlier this year in January, a lady named Mary Holler from Office of Indigent Services came and did a presentation before all the judges and the clerk of courts in Wilkes County about the Office of Public Defender. The Office of Public Defender is funded through the Administrative Office of the Courts. That's the same funding source that funds the District Attorney's Office. And in general, they have the same staff and they have comparable pay. Well, here's why that's important. My son, as y'all know, he just graduated law school and he just passed the state bar for the first time. I'm really proud. First time he took it, he passed it, okay? But how many of his classmates do you think were from rural counties and decided, I'm going to go back and practice in that rural county, or did they go to Atlanta and Charlotte to make the big bucks? What do you think they did? So we have a shortage of lawyers in rural counties throughout North Carolina. But they take court-appointed work. Judges appoint in these cases. You look at a backlog of the court system up there. It's really backed up. Well, why do you think that is? Because if I appoint Andy 30 or 40 clients and he's their attorney, he has to have enough time to go through the file to get him a fair defense, doesn't he? We have so few lawyers in this county, and because of the income, and we're a distressed community, people can't afford a lawyer, so they have to work with appointed lawyers. That's how it works. So the Office of the Public Defender, think, well, why does people work for them? If you work for the Office of the Public Defender for 10 years, they'll pay your suit of debt. That's one benefit. They don't get paid a big salary, but they get a big benefit with that. And so they wanted to expand that to Wilkes County. They also wanted to expand it to Alexander. Alexander is probably getting it. You know why Wilkes didn't get it? Because Tom Horner, our elected DA, opposed the Office of Public Defender coming here to Wilkes. Why did he do that? Checks and balances. See, if you want a fair system, have a fair prosecution and a fair defense. We don't get that here. Why would anybody oppose the Office of Public Defender being here when we have a need for it? I want y'all to think about that. I think it needs to be here. Alexander got it. If it's good enough for Alexander, why is it not good enough for Wilkes? We're just as poor as they are. I mean, it's not that we have lazy people that live in Wilkes County. It's that if you worked at Rhonda Chair Plant, or you worked at different factories, you were proud of your job, but they didn't pay you a good salary. So you could have worked your whole life and you ain't got a lot of money, and you can go pay the lawyer bills and see what that does to you. So I think we need the public defender's office in this county. We need it throughout the whole state. And that's not a popular idea with the Republicans, and I'm a Republican. So I'll tell you who that popular idea is with. That popular idea is popular with the Constitution of the United States. Politicians play politics with the Constitution. Whatever side benefits them. I got an idea. Why don't you just follow the Constitution? Completely. Every person in America has a right to fair defense. They all have a right to that, whether they can afford it or not. And the thing about Wilkes and Rhonda, people here can't afford it. We need to make sure that they can. If we had that, things like I'm saying happen, would happen a lot less. That's all I'm trying to say. So what I've asked the board to do is I've asked the board not to accuse anybody of anything. I've asked the board Based on what I've shown the board here today and the citizens of the town today, I've asked the board to send a letter to the Federal Bureau of Investigations that oversees Rhonda area and ask them to do a full investigation into this. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Hey, and if any of y'all believe in me and support me, I believe in that county commissioner right there, Keith Elmore, and I support him. You saw who showed up to listen. You saw who, y'all see who cares about citizens. That right there. Thank you. But I've asked y'all to send a letter. The mayor's got a copy of it. It's not accusing and saying somebody did something, but it's y'all asking for a full investigation to be done in the situation. If they didn't do anything, they didn't do anything. If they did, let them be charged. But at least we deserve to know what happened. There should be an investigation. I've asked the board to send a letter to Criminal Justice Standards. What Criminal Justice Standards is, that's the regulatory body that gives you the authority to be a police officer. And if you violate the rules of professional misconduct, you probably shouldn't be a police officer.
That's for sure.
So I've asked them to send a letter asking them to look into it. I've also asked the board to send a letter to the state bar. The state bar is who enforces professional misconduct with the attorneys. DAs are attorneys.
What about judges?
That's who deals with it. And if they didn't do anything and violate the rules of professional misconduct, then nothing happens. But based on what's here today, I don't see how you leave this room without concern. And then I've also asked the board to pass a resolution that says, do you have that resolution, Mayor? Can you read that?